Welcome back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective. This week, I've got something a little bit different for you. Now, this podcast has never been a political podcast, and it will never be a political podcast. However, I want to talk a little bit about how politics kind of immerses itself into the pediatric cancer community. And coming from somebody that grew up never being political, really never understanding it, really never getting into it, maybe not even caring about politics as much as everybody does now. I turned 18 the year that I graduated high school. That was the first year that I was able to vote in an election. That was in the 2000 election of Bush and Gore. And if everybody remembers the pregnant or hanging Chad incident in Florida, you're welcome. That was me. That was us. But that was the first election that I was ever able to vote in, ever able to be a part of. And the first time I ever really even thought about politics, to be completely honest with you. And getting into in my adult life and going through things, I don't think that after that, I don't even remember voting past that date in 1999. I don't remember going to the polls. I don't think I've ever voted in a midterm. I don't think I've ever voted in, say, like local politics. Like I've just never really been a part of it, never really focused a lot of time and effort on it. And I think that I'm like a lot of people. I think we understand what it means. I think we understand maybe our duty to country, maybe our what we bring to the table and how our vote matters, our voice matters. Maybe I understand that, but never really put a lot of effort onto it. And becoming part of this pediatric cancer community, you really get just overwhelmed with how much politics plays a role in the life and death of your child. And it's a lot of it is indirect. But here's the deal. You know that policies set forth decades and decades and decades ago, policies, standard operating procedure, rules and regulations, percentages, all of that were set forth decades ago, way before I was even on this planet. And those rules and regulations have put us in a position now in this community where we're wondering at what point will our kids be taken care of. And I have faced politicians, I have spoken to politicians, both Republican and Democrat. I don't discriminate. I don't discriminate whether it comes to speaking to them about actually bringing something forth that could help our children or calling them out for bad policies or bad rulings or bad votes on bills or whatever that will negatively affect our children or negatively affect their abilities to actually have a future. And that is not unique to this community. But for me personally, when JC was diagnosed, the first thing that I started to notice and started to understand is you started to hear a lot of more than 4. You started to understand that 4% of government funding, NIH, NCI funding from presidential executive orders or programs that they have got going on into research and things like that, and funding hospitals, things, all of those things kind of line up, and you start to really get, like I said before, overwhelmed with all of it because it all becomes a part of your daily life. And then when you start advocating for this and you start meeting with politicians and you start, you get information from them that is good, but you also get information that makes you clearly understand that most of, if not all, are not in it for you. They're in it for re-election. They're not in it for the people. That platform that they ran on 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 50 years ago, that platform that they ran on no longer means anything. I've often said, too, that you show me a politician and I will show you their platform where they said, we're going to fight for kids. We're going to stand up for kids. For anything children related, whether it's food, healthcare, schooling, whatever, we're going to fight for them. We're going to be on their side. Every single politician, I think, at one point has used kids as a pawn in their political uprising to try to gain votes, to try to gain traction. And then once they get into that elected office, it all becomes party of fighting the other side. And that party of fighting the other side, it hurts us negatively. Now, here's where we get off rails. I'm not going to make this a political podcast. I could very well go into political commentary and I could tell you everything that I feel versus everything that's happening, but that's not what I want to do. What I want to talk about is how this negatively affects our kids, because bills are passed every single day in Congress, whether it's locally, whether it's federally. Bills are passed or introduced every single day. And there seems to be a cause for everybody has their own cause. Everybody has their own mission. Everybody has their own drive, their own reasoning for why they approach politicians to create bills, why they do that. And I get it, and I encourage you to do that. If you have a cause, fight for it. But understand that your cause is important to you. My cause is important to me, and they're not necessarily going to be important to each other. However, they both have benefits if you're willing to put in the time and the effort for it. I have been, for the better part now of 5 years, putting in that effort to try to find something that can work for our kids. As I watch continuously bills introduced and passed that I don't understand the merit of, and I don't understand the reasoning of. And a lot of times, one of the biggest catchphrases that you hear in Congress right now is common sense. Common sense, common sense. We need common sense this, we need common sense that, we need common sense. But at what point do you understand that common sense only applies if you're actually looking into the grand scheme, the whole entire picture? Our kids are literally, this is not some kind of Hallmark moment. It is the only reality that there is. Our kids are our only future. They're the only thing we have that we can put our time and effort into build and to grow and to shape and to mold and to give them everything that they need in order to succeed in life. They are the only future that we have. Without them surviving into adulthood, without them realizing their dreams and rising to the potential that they have, without that happening, we don't have a future. We are literally just counting down the clock until we are no longer here anymore, and there will be nothing left. We have to focus on taking care of our kids. And this is where watching the political theater that goes on every single day. And this is not, I will never align with a party. I will never align with a party, number one, because I don't agree with everything on both sides. I don't disagree with everything on both sides. I have a lot of views and a lot of opinions, but that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast has to do with children battling cancer, their families, and how politics just gets itself all intertwined in there. Because whether we like it or not, we have to work within the political realm to get what we need. And what we need is the ever popular thing you hear us all say all the time, which is better funding. We need better research. We need better understanding. We need better scientists. We need better people that want to create a cure, people that want to create something that is going to give our kids a future. We need people that want to put in the work, take the time, put in the effort. We need people that want to do that. And in order to do that, you need money. You need dollars. And when you hear 4% of government funding, it is literally a couple $100 million. And to any of us normal people in the world right now, if we had a couple $100 million, we'd probably be okay. A lot of us would waste it on dumb shit, but we would find a way to invest that money to continue to work for us. However, when you're saying a couple $100 million for a population of people that is in the millions, and you're saying that same amount of money goes to that same group of people versus one person, it doesn't last. It goes away very, very quickly. And everybody wants a piece of the pie. And listen, everybody might be out there with good intentions to find a way to make this happen, to make research and to make discoveries and to make headway in this pediatric cancer world, trying to figure out why and how to fix it. Everybody might have great intentions, but if there's not the resources there to give them that option, then their research, their time, their effort, it all goes on the shelf and it goes nowhere. And I get the comments that I'll get with some of this are going to be that it's all one person's fault. Funding was cut. And listen, the first thing I'm going to say is absolutely. I think that President Trump cutting funding to the NIH, to the NCI, I think it sucks. And I think it's not a good thing. And I don't agree with it. Okay. And I never have agreed with it. But my argument has always been this, and I think people take it the wrong way. I think you take it as me defending him or stumping for him or standing on his platform, speaking for him. No, I'm not doing that. I will call out left and right no matter what. No matter what, I will call it out. I don't care what party designation you have. I will call you out when I think you're wrong, period. When you come out and say that all this funding has stopped, all of this research has stopped, science has stopped, therefore our kids are getting screwed, and you use, because it's happened more than once now, you use our kids in our community, in your newscasting, in your podcasting, in your media, and say that all of these kids are getting screwed because of Donald Trump, you fail to realize, or you just fail to actually talk about the fact that we've been for decades, sitting on the edge of wondering if anything was ever going to happen for our kids, begging for funding, begging for research, begging for understanding, begging for anything to help our kids along. And we're sitting at a measly 4%. 4%. That's 4 cents of every dollar is dedicated to a population in the millions of kids around the world that are battling cancer. And you want to blame all of the world's problems on one person when it comes to that specific matter. And I think it's disingenuous. I think it's a disingenuous thing to say that all of this has stopped and all of this has stopped because of him. Listen, like I said, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the cutting of funding. I don't agree with the cutting of research or the cutting of grants. But I also try to look at the big picture and say, hey, before he was president, somebody else was. And when he's done being president, somebody else will be. And unless something drastically changes, because it didn't change before he was there, and unless something drastically changes after he's gone, then I want every single person that said that he stopped it to tell me exactly why it's not fixed. That's my fight. That's my argument. That's what it's always been. Honest to God, go find a post anywhere on my social media, on my podcast, on my Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and find a reason or find me defending him. When it comes to this research, when it comes to the funding, when it comes to the NIH and the NCI, you won't find it. Because I think that we have to look, if we're ever going to get any kind of traction in this realm, if we're ever going to get any kind of change, any kind of positivity, we have got to look at the big picture. We have to. And the big picture is that for decades, our kids have been screwed out of an opportunity, screwed out of chances. There are 1,800 children every single year that are going to die from cancer. 1 in 5. That is 1 in 5. And what that means is that those same politicians, the same politicians that say that it's all his fault or it's all their fault, it's always somebody else's fault. The same ones that do that are telling me and telling everybody else that is in that terrible, terrible club of 1,800 children, that our kids were the 1 in the 1 in 5, and that is acceptable loss. And you are never going to convince me or any other parent in this community that acceptable loss of our children is okay if it's for the greater good. Because that, by far, is the most bullshit thing that I've ever heard in my life. And you don't have to say it out loud. We understand what you're saying to us every single day. When you tell us that somebody else is doing everything wrong and it's their fault, but you don't have a damn solution for how to fix it, you are also part of the problem. That's where it drives me, I think, the most intensely crazy out of all of this. In today's politics, if you're watching a Twitter fight, X fight, whatever you want to call it, Instagram fight, Facebook fight, all of these things, if you're watching politicians on social media go after each other, go after the other party as a collective. If you're watching them do that on a daily basis, but you fail to be able to search through their history of posting and find anything positive or find anything that they have introduced that would be a positive measure for America, if you cannot find that, but you can find 100,000 posts of them calling out the other party or calling out other politicians or calling out a president for anything and everything that they can think of, they're not working for you. They're not working for you. And even if you are part of that party, if you've made that designation, they're not your politician. Even if they're in your district, they don't care about you. Because at this point, the only thing they care about is get rid of the people, the guy, the person that I don't like. Get rid of them and take over. Great. Listen, I'm for a full reset of Congress. All members of Congress, full reset across the board. I think that's wonderful. But we can't remove people that we don't like and put crappier people right back in their place and expect that the problem is going to get any better. Okay? You can't do that. Our kids deserve better representation. Our kids deserve an opportunity to speak their mind, to speak their cases, to speak their stories, to have, unfortunately for us, to have their legacies told. They deserve to have that happen. And they deserve to have people listen to what they're saying. And they deserve to have progress. They deserve to have something actually come from all of the hard work, the suffering, the pain, the travel, the money, the job loss, school, missing out on school, missing your siblings, not being able to do the things normal kids do. They deserve to have all of that recognized. They deserve to have all of that time that they put into being a badass warrior when they aren't supposed to be. They deserve to have all of that lived experience put on the spotlight, and they deserve to have it be the headline, the number one story, the front page every single day. That's my cause. That's what I fight for. That's what I stand for. I've mentioned that if I ever ran for office, that's exactly the same way that I would fight for people that voted for me and people that didn't vote for me. You want to know why? Because everybody deserves the representation of somebody that gives a damn about them, whether they agree with you or not. And I love having conversations with people that don't agree with me. I think it's the best way to learn. I think it's the best way to grow as a person, to see other people's views. As long as you're not shoving those views down my throat, as long as you're not forcing me to believe what you believe, then I'd love to have a conversation with you. But the way that this stuff just winds itself all around the pediatric cancer community, and most of the time in a negative way, is sickening. It's sickening. We saw before Trump was elected or before he was inaugurated, and we saw a budget bill, and that budget bill had some stuff taken out, and we got to see the other side of anybody against Trump. So I'll say that's the other side. Came out and attacked him and attacked everybody that liked him and attacked his followers, attacked his cabinet, all of that on the shoulders of the pediatric cancer community. Used our kids, our battles, our tears, our blood, our sweat, our everything, and used it to their advantage to have a headline. Used it to their advantage to create a story and then left us in the dark. Never said another thing about it. Every talking head, every prominent person on social media, every person that you could think of that has the platform to reach millions of people at the drop of a hat used that bill cutting funding to pediatric cancer and then just went away and then just disappeared. And there was never any other talk about it. There was never anything else that was ever said about it. There was never any follow-up. It was all one person's fault. He cut funding to pediatric cancer. But the reality of the situation in all of that was when they say that pediatric cancer funding is being cut because there's budget cuts to the NIH or the NCI, and this is just going to be a side note. When those cuts come down, they don't come from the president or the executive branch. They come from the upper level management at the NIH, at the NCI. They make the internal decisions on where that money is going to be taken away from. So even if they've got a budget cut, they're deciding. They're making the choice and the decision that kids don't need any more money, and they're the best way to make cuts. They're making that choice. I want to be clear on that. But when all of that, so back to what I was saying, when all of that happened, the whole world jumped on board, and there were stories everywhere about how pediatric cancer funding had been cut. Bills had been cut. It had been cut out of the bill, and they weren't going to get all this funding. And they jumped all over. And to be honest with you, at that moment, I was pissed that both the funding had been cut and there was going to be money taken away because of a bill that was created that was going to help, right? And I was pissed about that, but I was also pissed about the fact that all of this media and all of these talking heads decided this was the best time to jump on board, as if they cared, as if they gave a damn about the kids that were going to be affected. They didn't. It was a good story. It was a good way to get clicks and views, and that was it. There was no follow-up. There were no interviews. There were no anything. That was it. And then it dissipated and went away. It went away into the ether, and it gone. It's happened, and then there were things that happened with immigration. And when immigration stories were popping up, and there happened to be one that involved a child that was battling cancer who I believe's family might have been getting deported or whatever was going on. I'm not going to get into that, but that wasn't the story. The deportation, the immigration status, the laws, the border, none of that was the story. The story was child battling cancer can't get her treatments because she's being, and then it got into the 17 pages later, got into deportation, immigration status, whatever, all of that. Once again, you utilized our kids. You utilized what they go through on a daily basis to get clicks and views. But there was never, again, the follow-up is never there. You never follow up and try to come up with and try to find out more about this story. Try to find out more about why things are happening. Try to find out more why it's important. You never do that. It's a clicks and views thing. So again, we have to understand that politics is intertwined in everything. There's just no way to get away from it. You just cannot do it. But we have to find a better way to have politics positively affect our kids, our future, our lives. Right now, that's not happening. Right now, we're not getting that positive effect. Right now, we're not getting good things coming out of it, for lack of a better way to put it. We're not seeing that. We're seeing our kids forgotten. We're seeing our kids misunderstood. We're seeing going into politicians' offices in the month of September and having them not understand why we're there. We're seeing bills come across the table that would positively affect our kids, and you reach out to a politician's office to have them sign it, and it doesn't happen. We're seeing our kids held hostage by rogue politicians on the Senate floor to ensure that they get funding for their own personal projects. Otherwise, screw the kids. We see stories every single day. These kids, they travel to DC, they go to these senators, these politicians' offices, they get involved. They're becoming a part of groups, advocacy days and Climb the Hill and Cure Fest and and they're becoming part of this. But every year we have more and more families that have joined the ranks of grieving mothers and fathers, grieving siblings. We have more and more families that are joining the ranks. We have more and more that are understanding that while there may be progress, we may be seeing progress, it's too little too late. And for us right now, we're just a few months away from July 3rd, and that'll be 5 years since JC went to be in heaven. 5 years. And it's surreal. It's surreal to believe that it's been that long, because it still feels like it was yesterday. And it still feels like in those moments that I was reaching out to senators and I was reaching out to representatives and assembly members and saying, we need help. We need something. We need tax credits. We need research. We need something, because our kids are dying. Our kids are dying at a rapid rate because of this damn disease, and nothing is changing. Nothing is changing. And I do believe that we have the people. I do believe that we have the researchers, and we have the scientists, and we have the students. I do believe we have the people to put an end to this. I do believe we have the minds and the intelligence to come up with a plan, to come up with a treatment, to come up with a way that we don't have to worry anymore about whether or not our child is going to be with us into adulthood. I believe we have it. We just have to harness it. And we have to give those same people the resources that they need to be able to come up with the discoveries. I know that they can. And that's where we're missing. That's where we're missing the ball here, because we're not giving them the resources. We're not giving doctors the tools that they need. We're not giving scientists the samples, and we're not giving them the ability to reach out and to find them. And we're putting too much red tape in front of everything. And we've got to take all these walls and we've got to take them down, and we've got to allow people to do the work that we know that they can do. And unfortunately, as much as I don't want it to be a part of it, politics plays a big role in that. Politics plays a big role in policy, in operating procedures, in getting samples to where they need to go, chain of command, chain of custody, whatever. There's a lot of red tape and a lot of things that have to happen, a lot of regulations that have to happen in order for things to get to where they need to go. And if you understand this community, you understand, number one, our kids don't have a day. They don't have a day to wait. They don't have 2 weeks to wait for something to get approved or processed or shipped. They don't have a year. They don't have, we'll get to it sometime. And when you hear these funding bills or these bills that would allow research to be more expansive, these bills that would give kids a chance, literally give kids a chance, these bills that would break down red tape barriers to go across state lines. When you see these things happen and these things introduced, and then you see them fall apart in Congress, and then you hear from Congress or you hear from the news media, we'll get to it in the next session. We'll get to it in the next. Don't worry, it's going to pass. We'll get to it in the next session. Meanwhile, between the time that you decide to go home for recess, like a kindergartner, until the time that you come back to maybe vote on this again and maybe get it passed, we're talking weeks and weeks and weeks, if not months. And by the time things actually get signed, put into law, and actually get moving, how many kids have been diagnosed? 47 a day. How many kids have passed away while they're waiting? 1 in 5. And how many kids throughout the year are we going to lose because you dragged your ass on something that should have been so simple and common sense? The answer is 1,800 every single year while they're waiting for you to make a move, while they're waiting for you to understand how important they are, while they are waiting for you to realize that they are the only future that you have. And to politicians out there, I don't want this to be a negative thing for you. And I don't want you to look at this and I don't want you to ever feel what my wife and my other 2 daughters have felt losing JC. I don't want you to ever feel what so many parents out there feel. I don't want you to ever feel what it's like to be told your child has cancer and we don't know how to fix it. The treatments are limited. The outlook's not good. Go home and make memories. There's nothing more we can do. I don't want you to ever understand what that's like. But at the same time, I want you to understand how real of a threat this disease is. I want you to look at the children's pictures on your desk, and I want you to look in your children's eyes, and I want you to understand that at any moment, it could be them. And that's just reality. That's just reality. Because none of us, as generic as this sounds, none of us were cancer parents until the day that we were. None of us went to the hospital in the middle of the night to get a CT scan, thought that they were going to come out and say, your child has brain cancer. We sure as hell didn't think that. And when we were told that, we knew that the fight was going to begin. And it was going to be hard, and it was going to be rough, and it was going to be something that was going to break us. But as broken as we are strong and we are loud, and we want politicians and the people in Congress, both locally and in DC, to understand that this is a community that is not going to stop until you finally understand that all of your sandbox bullshit every single day that you do on X and on Facebook and Instagram, and your back and forth bickering on the other side, your hate for the president, your love for the president, whatever, that none of it means a damn thing. Because while you're doing that, people are suffering, and they're not suffering because of an administration. They're suffering because of a group of people that have decided they are going to shut down the country, not do a damn thing, as long as they can focus on getting rid of one person or getting rid of another party. And that doesn't do anybody any good. That's not, and again, you're not seeing me align with either side. I'm not going to do it. But both sides do it, and you're hurting all of us. But I can take it. My wife can take it. But our kids can't. And it is time that you step up and understand that we're here because we want to be heard. Our kids deserve to be heard. Our children's legacies deserve to live on. And change deserves to happen so that those legacies did not come about in vain. That they fought and they fought and they fought. And they are the strongest people. These children battling this disease are the strongest people on this planet, strongest people I've ever met in my entire life. And they deserve a future because they are the only future. And it's time for you to think about that. And it's time for you to understand that when somebody comes into your office, that emails you, that calls you, and they want to tell their story of a child that has battled this, a child that was lost, a child that was newly diagnosed, or a family that just wants to be heard, that you will put down what you're doing. You will clear your schedule, and you will sit and you will listen. Because without us fighting for our kids, and without our kids having the opportunity to grow up and be adults and realize all the potential that God gave them, we have nothing. And everything that you claim to stand on now it'll just be forgotten. It'll be forgotten and useless. So that is my rant for today. That is my podcast for today. I hope everybody held on to the end. I apologize. if it gets a little bit emotional, but at the same time, and it gets heated, that's just the way that it is. Politics is so intertwined in everything that we do, and it's taken away so much from us because it does not allow a lot of dissension in the ranks. You have to kind of follow a party line. And if anybody knows me, and even if you don't, I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't toe a party line. I never have. I will not stump for you. I will not stand up for you, and I will not fight for you if you don't allow other opinions or other thoughts or views to actually be heard. Okay, we all have our own opinions and views. We have our thoughts, we have our morals, we have our values. We have all of that, and that's great. And I admire all of you for it. But we have to be able to understand that other people have their own opinions, and we have to listen to those. We don't have to listen to those, but it makes sense to listen. It makes sense to sit and understand. And when it's all said and done, you shake hands, you hug it out, you grab a beer, and you move on. Okay, doing all of this and coming together, as you know, and fighting and butting heads gets us nowhere. We have to be able to work together in all of this. To politicians that are hearing this, if you have heard this, if you listen to my entire podcast, if you listen to this episode, understand working together is the best thing that we have. We don't have to agree. We don't have to vote the same. We don't have to have the same morals and whatever you want to call them. But we have to work together to ensure that our children have what they need to move forward in life. So I thank everybody for listening to me. We will see you all in the next one.